Good to start?
Yep, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. This is the PNCA Low Residency Creative Writing Program. I think we're in day 8 or 7 or 6, it's hard to tell, of our residency. And we're kind of moving into the latter end of the residency. And that's the best part. Everybody's really tired. And yet at the same time, things really begin to synthesize and connect. It's wonderful. Before I introduce our readers, I would just like to make an announcement for those of you who are in the program. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., Alejandro de Acosta is giving his talk. And it is called On Brief Lives and Nested Genres. So that's at 10 a.m. For those of you who were in the critical writing classes, don't be confused. You don't have a critical writing class. You have Alejandro's talk tomorrow morning. And then our guest artist, Jenny Boully, will be teaching a class in the afternoon on the fragment. I hope you all will come to that. I cannot wait for that class. The next 2 nights, we have our readers, our guests of the residency, Catie Hannigan, Jenny Boully, Pupe Masagi, and Daniela Naomi Molnar. Tonight's reading is Catie Hannigan and Jenny Boully. Catie Hannigan is a queer poet and visual artist from Maine. Her work incorporates poetry, bookmaking, installation, and photography, with an emphasis on what is simple and deliberate. She is the author of Moon's Cabin from Dancing Girl Press, Water Fragments, Tammy Journal, and What Once Was, There Is the Most Beautiful Thing, Diagram. She has received fellowships from In Cahoots Residency, C3 Initiative, Haystack Mountain School of Crafts, among others. She teaches poetry in the Poetry Certificate Program at the Independent Publishing Resource Center, the IPRC, wonderful place, at Portland Community College, and her own online creative writing courses in Portland. Catie also taught a class here for the last couple days called Holistic Creative Practice, and it was fantastic. Let's welcome Catie Hannigan.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you everyone who's watching. This is definitely the most fun reading that I've had. I don't know who's watching. It's kind of cool. And I'm excited to read with Jenny, and I've had such a great time at PNCA the last few days. So it's been a pleasure. A couple things is that my dog is behind me and you might hear him. It's just a thing that might happen. He's a little guy. But yeah, so I am actually going to be really showing work that's in process. It's all in process, none of it is finished. And I'm gonna just kind of speak to what that process has been like. So I've kind of had 2 mediums the last few months. One has been flowers and one has been writing. My father passed away 3 months ago from yesterday. He passed away in Maine, where my family is, and I was able to see him the end of March, beginning of April, really briefly. And then because of the pandemic, I came home and I've been here in Oregon since. So a lot of what my creative focus has been processing my grief, thinking about my father, and just kind of seeing where that has been leading me. So I have a few different projects to share that kind of speak to that. The first is I've been pressing flowers, and so I wanted to share some of that. This first one, so I'm making a triptych right now, so 3 different images. This first one, trying to get it without too much of a glare. I think that's probably the best angle. These are flowers that were given to me the day that my father passed. These are flowers that they're wildflowers that I planted the day that my father entered hospice, which was at the end of March. And so I only have 2 right now because the third one is currently growing. I planted calendula and cornflower on the day my father passed, and I'm currently collecting them. So I'm going to show some of these. The cornflower is still growing. These look kind of funny because they're frozen. So I've been freezing calendula because I'm going to be using it for a dye. But when I have a few last buds, I'll be pressing them as well. Yeah, so I have some of that that's still growing. And kind of the next reiteration of this project has been that I'm going to make an artist book. And this artist book is going to be made using silk organza. So I have the book with me, but it's not complete. So these are the pages. You open it like you would a book. It will be bound. This is silk organza, so it's natural fiber. It's transparent. And I'll be bundle dyeing it with the calendula and the cornflower, and then binding the book. And I wanted to share it because that's just where my process has been the last few months. Creatively, this is a medium that's making sense to me right now. And kind of, I think with the grief of the pandemic, and for me, the grief of my father and the grief that we're feeling as a nation with this reckoning with racism, I think telling time, like linear time, has been something that's been really difficult. And so using these flowers as this medium of telling time and making art has been really nourishing for me. So those are the first 2 kind of visual reiterations, and then I'm going to read. So I have been writing. I've been writing and I've been collecting it. It is very unedited. None of it is, I don't know what it will be, whether many poems, lots of poems, we'll have to see. But I decided in the vein of process, I am just going to, I cut up a lot of the fragments and they're in this bowl and I'm going to pull them out at random and just read however they come. I didn't really want to read it in any specific way yet because it doesn't really have a way. I am going to read this one piece first. This is the only fragment of the work that I wrote before my father passed. And so I think it makes sense to start here, and then everything that follows has been over the last 3 months. So I'll start. I'm waiting to become fatherless, like a star which trembles before it falls. His body is also the star, also the fall. I ask her to say a prayer when his spirit falls. By falls, I mean leaves. The spirit leaves, just like a star, through a dark door. The universe is a room. I stand outside and weep, let me in. I go to bed. I recite For Love by Robert Creeley, the only poem I have memorized. Sometimes the kitchen lamp glows like the sunrise. Even the sunflower who burst through underneath a pebble, not much to say except the stone's throw. Blue is now sapphire, prove me wrong. Don't though. This is all I have left, the mutable colors and names of things. The day after my father dies, I wanted to talk to Linda Gregg. I remembered her passing, staring into her Wikipedia page as if into a frozen pond. She said, "Death is a hard word," and I rolled the sound in my mouth like a butterscotch, the kind that my dad kept in a Ziploc bag wrapped with 3 rubber bands in the center console. I walk the dog. What follows that has already winnowed into possibility. The birds of summer are crows and chickens. I plan to build a book out of silk, forever unraveling at my own handling. Reader, I want to open this up to you. It is difficult. Between me and the page is something invisible and close, a doorway, I am sure of it. Please come through. I cannot reach out any further than this. I'm not sure how to begin the rewriting of things. To be honest, it's easier now that he is dead, but he wouldn't approve. I hang rainbow catchers in all the windows. At least now, to be disoriented is to be enchanted instead of pressing my palms against a wet, dark wall. I love a shadow that may never reveal its form. A suspicion tells me it's my own death, but who really knows? At the coast, I hope my father will contact me from the afterlife, slipping some cash under a great round stone, a gray weight I can lift over and over again, the buried absence that rises into my face like smoke, silent and unsure. Mom says dad visited her, unplugged the coffee maker. Even in spirit, I hear him. Shh, quiet now, quiet. In the middle of the night, as he reaches across the counter, slips his finger underneath the cord and pulls. These waking hours of loss, an imagined event which haunts more or less like any other event that takes you farther away from the thing you love. The waking hours, where anything is possible. Nearly 4 weeks after my father died, George Floyd was murdered. My grief burst through as milkweed, and yet my father's good death, at ease, like a boat tied up in a mysterious lake, his last breath consented to. Even my grief, a dock in that lake. The knowledge of my father's death carries me into rooms a few inches above the ground, wondering who will notice enough to ask why I am floating. I contact my ancestors via email. I have questions, an informational gap, the distance between one puddle and the next, the dust settling in. Each night the protests drown the birdsong. By drown, I mean blend with. Black Lives Matter is birdsong, even my dog lulled. In the grief group, I am asked to choose an object that represents how I feel. Driftwood, weathered, aimless, battered by waves, softened by drowning, waiting to be found or burned. Between my eyes and fist is a mirror. I spit. The spit comes back to me, and just like this, I'll live. Thank you. I don't know how long that was, but it's all gone.
Catie, thank you so much. Wonderful reading. Thank you. This is Jenny's most recent book, Betwixt and Between, Essays on the Writing Life. If you don't have this book, you should go right away to powells.com or bookshop.org and procure your copy, or go straight to coffeehousepress.com. It's my great pleasure to introduce Jenny. Oh, look at the dog. Hello. It's my, I think this is maybe the third time I've done this, and I hope there are many more times. Jenny Boully is a 2020 Guggenheim Fellow in General Nonfiction and the author of Betwixt and Between, Essays on the Writing Life. Her previous books include Not Merely Because of the Unknown That Was Stalking Toward Them, The Book of Beginnings and Endings, One Love Affair, Of the Mismatched Teacups of the Single Serving Spoon, A Book of Failures, The Body, and Essay. Jenny currently teaches at Columbia College and the Bennington Writing Seminars. Let's welcome Jenny to PNCA's Low Residency Creative Writing Program. Yay.
Hi, I am so happy to be here. I love just being able to spend the night sharing my work. It's a very wonderful honor, and it's good. I think I needed this, so thank you. I'm going to be reading an essay that took a really long time to write. It's one of my research-driven, curiosity-driven pieces that just grows really unruly and sets a lot of tendrils, and I have to find a way to rein it in. But it's from an upcoming collection called I Want This to Be True, Essays on Existence in the Afterlife. And this particular piece is called Cindy Dodge Aerialist Fall. My father was a man who would point to spectacles and say, "They just want your money." I would never even think to ask my parents if we could go to the circus. I knew even at 8 that the circus entailed what my father abhorred: crowds and spectacle, and the giving away of his money just so he could fight with crowds. The living unicorn was the marvel of the circus that summer, and my sister and I pined for both the circus and a sight of the living unicorn. Starla, however, had gone to the circus, and she had the souvenirs to prove it. She had seen the living unicorn. My sister and I marveled at Starla's keepsakes, the light-up tiger head, the sparkling baton glitter tube with the pink tinsel on the ends, and the program that contained a pull-out poster of the living unicorn. Earlier that year, Starla and her family appeared at the greenhouse in the cul-de-sac. Star's mother let her wear makeup, and I could not. Starla wore a bra, and I did not yet need one. Starla had real brand name clothes, and I had flea market knockoffs. Star had all the boys, and I had none. Star was popular, and I was not. Star had gone to the circus, and I had not. At the flea market where we used to go on weekends, her mother told us that she overheard some boys talking about a cute chick. One boy said, "Who? Her?" He was pointing at me. The other boy said, "Oh no, not her. She's ugly." The boy had meant Star, and Starla's mother wanted me to know that the cute chick was her daughter and not me. Never me. I was only 8, and my friend's mother made it her duty to make sure that I knew I was ugly. That ugly lived deep in me, a black spot in my core. A star was born and her name was Starla. How could I ever hope to compete with a name like that? And she was allowed to have a haircut that started short at her left ear and slanted longer toward her right ear with a rat tail. It was the year of Madonna and lace gloves and Lucky Star, and there was Starla in the glitter and wow and pop and metallic confetti of all of that. She even had earrings to match. Oh no, not her. She's ugly. I kept hearing that. Starla had a cat. It was white, a tiny baby. One day their pit bull Daisy took that kitten by its neck and shook out all the life that was left of it. There was nothing left of it, so her stepfather, while we jumped on the trampoline, took a gun and shot the little kitten in its cotton skull. There was nowhere to bury it, so no one buried it. Star started her period. Her mother didn't believe her, but she showed us the red stain on her bed. It was just a little nick of blood, as if nothing was even hurt, but she insisted. That was when Starla still lived on our street. That was back when I was 8 and going on 9. Starla moved soon after. We tried to stay friends, but then I didn't see her for a very long time. Then many years later, my older sister who could drive saw Starla at the mall, and she gave my sister her phone number. She was living with her grandpa, the same grandpa that her half-brother lived with. We went to see her. I was 13 then and had dyed my hair pitch black. I didn't want the sun. I was a dark thing that brooded on poetry and wanted to die. When we saw her, she said to me, "You're so pretty now." But she must have read me, my reluctance to believe. She told us she was living with her grandpa because when she told her mother that her stepfather had been touching her, her mother didn't believe her and told her to leave. The phone rang while we were there. It was a boy calling for her, but it was the boy that her grandpa didn't like, so she told him that he couldn't call her anymore. It had continued, the thing that had started for her, the constant need for boys to need her. I saw the slow, sad drop of the phone, the reluctance to entirely let go. Her stepfather had shot the cat in its little cotton skull. On the bed, there was just a little nick of stain, as if nothing was even hurt. But she insisted. The Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, the greatest show on earth, proclaims and insists that their living unicorn was real, and I suppose it could have been considered real if one realizes that the many medieval images of unicorns portray beasts that are considerably more caprine than equine. Circus goers in 1985, perhaps expecting a beast that looked more like a horse or the images in Lisa Frank stickers, were disappointed by the living unicorn. The living unicorn feeds on rose petals. His fur is frothy with milk and stars. He is the cleanest goat in the world, and all who meet him concur that the certain musty goat aroma is absent. He is a goat undoubtedly, but if one were to try to pull off that certain unicorn prop, that golden singular horn from atop its head, one would find that it remains attached, steadfast, never to come off, the very sword in the stone. That was the curious thing about the living unicorn. Its golden horn was actually growing and living. The living unicorn was the creation of Oberon Zell Ravenheart, the self-proclaimed wizard and co-founder of the Church of All Worlds, who had become convinced that unicorns were once real. He set about finding a method to make his own unicorns, a method that involved anesthesia, surgery, and grooming. The surgery, when successful, would also result in a temperament change in the goat due to changes in the brain caused by its altered skull. Oberon Zell Ravenheart believes his creations were indeed real unicorns. He claims that the animals themselves knew themselves to be unicorns, and that unlike the goat stock from which they were made, the unicorns, as a result of the unicorn making process, were, quote, amazingly charismatic, and also sported a, quote, exalted physique. The website Sideshow World, which interviewed Oberon in 2007, dubs him as, quote, artist, author, teacher, creator of living unicorns, wizard, showman. At the conclusion of the interview, Oberon talks about his then current project of writing a massive book on mythical beasts, setting up a wizardry school, writing an autobiography, and breeding a phoenix firebird. Oberon was born in 1942 and earned a BA in psychology, a PhD in divinity, and a teaching certificate. He is a self-proclaimed wizard, an early advocate of deep ecology, was influential in the polyamory movement, sculpted, co-founded the Escosophical Research Association in 1977, an organization that explores the truth behind myths. He founded the Church of All Worlds, created and edited the neon pagan magazine Green Egg, is the founder and current headmaster of the Gray School of Wizardry. In other words, he is a maker of spectacles, a spectacle himself, a man who hopes and dreams and lives within that dream. This essay was supposed to be solely about the living unicorn, but I failed in that I could not think about the living unicorn without thinking about Starla. Try as I might, however, I could forge no real thematic or metaphorical link between fakery and Starla. The story of the living unicorn is merely a story about fantasy and the spectacle and the sale of that fantasy. That is what we must want from the circus, after all. The story about Starla is merely the story about a childhood friend whose life appeared to have been better than mine until I discovered otherwise. I was researching the living unicorn, trying to ascertain the year and manner of his death, when I came across this entry in the index of circus articles. Cindy Dodge, aerialist, fall. At first, it was the entry itself that wouldn't leave me. Cindy Dodge, aerialist, fall. Then it was the trapeze. Then it was falling to one's death. Then it was Cindy. Cindy Dodge was an aerialist who performed from the dirt up. That is, she was not born into the circus and therefore was not what they call circus royalty. She was not born cast on the golden nets and sparkles of sashes and see here calls. She was a girl who marveled, who hoped and dreamed, who felt the strong tugs of the trapeze strings. She was a sunny blonde from California who first auditioned as a showgirl. And then later, after she was in the circus, she began training on the flying trapeze. The trapeze instructor gives me instructions on what I will do when I'm airborne, but it's happening too fast. I have never been one to keep orders in order, especially when those orders pertain to my body and how I must move my body. I was never good at sports or dance or even knowing my left from my right. Okay, you're going to push your legs through your arms. You're going to then hang upside down, she said. I don't think I can, I said. I don't think I can. It has been a mantra that circles me, relentless in its urgency, a mad bird diving and spiraling towards its end. I don't think I can. My list of regrets, my guilt, my failures, my moments of self-sabotage, the ugly girl with the stain of it, trying to conquer her dreams. Cindy Dodge, unlike me, was a girl who could, who thought she could, who easily pushed her legs through her arms and hung upside down. Cindy Dodge was a girl who had a dream and had tried and had made it, but she was nonetheless a girl who died within that dream. I have heard that the circus is timeless of its ability to transport one to a mesmerizing place outside a place, to pin down the moment until the moment is only the moment. I know that for my children, time is occurring as slowly as it ever will. While for me, it increases with horrific intensity. Each week I am startled by how the days, serious and astute trapeze flyers, contorting themselves and performing tricks I can't untangle, sweep past. My fear of heights is nauseating, pinpricking. It jolts me into panic and shock. My older sister likes to remember how she once chased me with the knife. And when I saw the knife, she says I froze. I do not remember it that way, but she insists that I froze in fear. I remember instead wanting a way out and trying to find that way out. Cindy Dodge had a dream that had lived, however briefly, within that dream. It was a dream that demanded that one not freeze, that one continuously see a way out. A trapeze artist, like a chess master, has to be able to see several moves into the future. However, unlike a chess player, the trapeze artist must continuously act. A bad second, a second thought, a failure to accurately and firmly grasp could mean a fall. I have had bad seconds. I have had second thoughts. I have had falls. I have failed to see several moves into the future. I have not been able to grasp. I have lived my life to its staunch and strict midpoint and have met it with fear. It is a brick wall at the end of the road. I have tried to see the way out. I have had ways, but failed to get there. I am a bit older than I was yesterday. There is white in my hair. I have arrived at 39, not as a shiny and brilliant star, but rather as a realization that what was once possible no longer is. I have always been afraid of heights. I have had bad seconds. I have had second thoughts. I have had falls. I have thought about, but not have had the self-worth or confidence or bravery or skill or whatever it takes to scale the brick wall. I am beginning to realize that it might have nothing to do with how hard I try or how badly I want it. It has to do with who I am and the fact that there is a wall. I have tried to find Star. I have been wanting to tell her about fears of mine, about how my sister and I too once walked that dark walk down the hallway to tell a parent a secret involving touch. My father merely nodded and said that that certain man would never come over again, and that certain man never did come over again, but our fear was never something that was held and then shook out. It closed up around us like a brick wall. My sister and I lived within that dark hallway, afraid all our lives, afraid over and over again, afraid of the trepidation to ask, the trepidation to tell, the trepidation to act at all. When I freeze, I'm really looking for a way out. To have trained for the circus your whole life and not make it. To be competent nonetheless at the tricks of the trade, but not worthy of the big top. For spectacle to exist, after all, someone has to fall. That is, danger has to be more than mere abstraction. In trapeze class, I was told to think of an imaginary hole into which I would jump. When the line person said hop, that would signal when I should jump into that hole. I was called a flyer. It was my signal to start climbing to the top. The climb to the top is 23 feet. To climb the ladder to the top is in itself an almost impossible feat. The first swing out on the trapeze is the worst, but it is not as bad as the letting go. That is, there's a point before the jump when you let go of the world as you know it. You have 10 toes perched off the edge of the flying trapeze board. You straighten yourself stiff and lean your hips out. You have your left hand clutched tight around the metal lattice. You clench the trapeze pole with the other. The board person tells me to let go and grab the pole with my left hand. I can't do this, I say. You can, she says. So I did. And there I was, leaning out into the void on the precipice of my fall. And then the line person said, hop. So I did. The first swing out is the worst, but not as bad as the letting go. I did not think I could climb such a tall ladder over 2 stories high. It helps if you just focus on one thing, I was told. So I focused on the illusory nature of it all. I could do this only if I could do it as if in a dream. For me, there was no rush or thrill or bravery about it. I approached flying trapeze class the same way I approached giving birth. That is, as a joyous event that I had been planning and waiting for, but an event that nonetheless would be painful, terrifying, anxiety-ridden, and hard-won. I counted down the minutes to the end of class. When it was my turn to climb to the platform again, I scaled the ladder as if my life depended on it. This was not something I was born to do. This was not something I would ever be good at. I was, and despite my many turns on the flying trapeze, would always remain afraid. Apparently, Cindy did not like her performance and wanted to write it. Apparently, that is why she was practicing between shows. Witnesses say she appeared to have lost her grip, and that is why she plunged 19 feet, landing her head on one of the metal circus rings. First, there was the critical condition, then there was some responsiveness and therefore hope. Scans showed a flat line. Scans showed a flat line again. A decision had to be made. Her organs had been harvested. Her parents were at her bedside. Her parents had taken their time in making that decision. Cindy was only 23, and she had suffered a great fall. She died on a Monday night, December 10th, 1984. I do not know why I wanted a go at the flying trapeze. I already knew I would fall. That is how I once thought this essay would end. But up there, swinging at a terrifying height, facing not so much the terror of falling and heights, but the worst that the world had recently given me, the safety lines did not exist, nor did the safety net. Safety became an abstraction. Time also stopped. My past and future also became abstractions. I could only see the one sore spot. Time indeed does stop, in that if you are like me, terrified, you begin to believe that the terror will never end. I went into this thinking that I would fall. I have always been the weakling, the underling, the one who could not throw far or hold on. I did not know that falling would be what I really wanted. I craved the ground and its baseness, the shame and obscurity of it. Apparently, the trapeze is traditionally the last show of the circus. I wouldn't know. I've never been. But I have been in a room made of brick walls. I have let the water run in the shower until the world was nothing at all, until the voices of my children could not even call. I have clung to the means to an end and thought that rather than being imperfect and unable, it would be better to not be at all. I could only see the one sore spot. The Ringling Brothers in Barnum and Bailey Circus proclaims that it is the greatest show on earth. And I have thought about that proclamation and its veracity. It is a proclamation that rings differently for me, someone who has never gone to the circus, than other jingles or slogans. Mostly, I put no faith in anything. I do not believe that any commercial product can save me. Mostly, I profess what my father taught me. That is, I recognize fully that anyone selling anything only wants my money. I put much thought into whether or not this circus indeed could be the greatest show on earth. It is a sweeping judgment full of surety and amazement. Surely, if you go, you aren't merely buying spectacle. Surely, if you go, you must be buying the greatest wonders that your eye can behold. May all your days be circus days is another one of Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus's slogans. It is the last message, the takeaway of one's time at the circus. It is a wish, a puff of dandelion, as ephemeral as a show itself. The lifespan of this wish is but a small wisp. It is the very stuff of magic and childhood. It is full of falsity, impracticality, and it is, after all, an impossible attainment. But like the greatest show on earth, I have spent much time thinking about what "may all your days be circus days" must mean. Although I never did go to the circus, I hunted down a copy of the program from 1985, the one that Starla had attended, the year in which the Living Unicorn performed. At the end of this program is that haunting wish that all of our days might be circus days. It is a wish accompanied by a photograph of the Living Unicorn himself, sporting a collar of white and pink rosettes. The golden horn of the unicorn dazzles, its fur shimmers, and the sequins and gems on the child acrobat's clothing sparkle. They are all childhood, wonder, enchantment, grandeur, and awe, cast in a rosy glow. To me, it is a melancholy setting, the most nostalgic scene, children, 1985, the Living Unicorn, an outdated sentiment. For me, this page in the program, appropriately at the end, conveys only endings, that we all die, that we never stop growing older, that dreams are something stuffed into childhood and abandoned there, that all living passes into the disjunctive land of the curio, memento, artifact. May all your days be circus days. I have attempted to capture and pin down exactly what this phrase is meant to convey. I think it can mean one of two things. It could mean that all our days should be full of wonder and awe. That is, we should be perceptive spectators and enjoy a show that is, at its core, meant to instill magnificence. Or it could mean that all our days should be full of performing. That is, we should live as the players in the greatest show, be the spectacle that wows and awes. But I have lately come upon a third meaning, one that I acquiesce to, one that unsettles and does not glow. It may be fatalistic, but it is for me one that most fully solves the question. For those who fail, despite how hard they try, the message must mean, may all your days be full of things that you just can't quite grasp, that send you to your inevitable fall. Addendum. Last summer, my daughter, seeing my circus research all about the house, asked if we could go to the circus. Yes, I said, next time the circus comes to town, we definitely will go. I told her that I had yet to go to the circus and I would love if we could share that together. The circus was coming to town next June. But then Ringling Brothers announced that they were pulling down the big top for good in May. They claimed that without the elephants, their ticket sales had dropped. Apparently, animal rights groups demanded that the circus remove elephants from their show. Without the elephants, it seemed, the show simply could not go on. Of course, it saddened me to know that I would never see this show, but I felt comforted knowing that the elephants and animals would finally enjoy the freedoms of freedom and retirement. The announcement helped me see the bright pinpoint of so much of life, that spectacle is cruelty and cruelty is spectacle. Thank you all so much. I hope you enjoyed the Living Unicorn poster in the back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Beautiful essay. Let's give our readers another hand in the room. Thank you so much, everybody. So tomorrow night we have Pupe Masagi and Daniela Naomi Molnar at 6:30. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Thank you, Katie. Awesome reading.
Thank you,
I-
Jay. Thanks,
I
Kate.
love the living unicorn at the back, the backdrop too. It's terrific. Thank you too.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Weston.
You're welcome.